So, final score, Arsenal 2, Bayern Munich 2. And I went into this game with a lot of confidence. I really thought that we were going to beat Bayern Munich, who are, of course, as we all know, completely out of form and going to lose the Bundesliga for the first time in 12 years. And, well, it could have been a much better start, really, could it? Bukayo Saka felt almost like, with all the conversations going on around whether he's world class or not, it felt like tonight was going to be the night that he went from being star boy to just star or star man. But that's not fair, really, because he's been that for a while. But I heard the goal that he scored described as Iron Robben-esque, and it certainly was that. Robben's signature move, that beautiful curling goal past diving Manuel Neuer, who is possibly one of the best, who is possibly the best goalkeeper that's ever played football. Although he didn't look that tonight. And it just, at that point with Saka's goal, 1-0 up, in fairness, we didn't really impose ourselves in the game. And, you know, then there's that moment where Ben White is through on goal and Neuer does save it. And if that's 2-0, you think the whole complexion of the evening could have completely changed. But he didn't score it. Manuel Neuer saved it. And then, of course, we gift them a goal. Confusion between David Raya and Gabriel. Not for the first time this season, but ball out to Kivior. He makes a sort of lazy attempt to get it. And then there's a sequence of balls through the, you know, of course, Serge Gnabry scores at the Emirates, a player who should never have left, who we should never have lost, who still speaks so fondly of Arsenal, and of course, breaking our hearts. And the silence that greets that goal, reminding us that there are no Bayern fans there. And even then, though, I thought, look, this is a bit like the Liverpool game where, okay, we've conceded a silly goal, but I still think we'll turn this into a win. And then, of course, there's another mistake by Kivior. Sane makes a run into the penalty area, and Saliba, I want to say, look, most of the time you watch Saliba, it's easy to forget he's only 23 years old, and every now and again it isn't. And that was a clumsy challenge, definite penalty. I don't think anyone's saying that they shouldn't have had a penalty. And of course, Harry Kane makes David Raya look ridiculous. Talked about it afterwards in the post-match commentary where he said, you know, I've been watching Raya's penalty saves against Porto and he likes to get to the corner. So a brilliantly taken Harry Kane penalty. Hate seeing him celebrate at the Emirates, but I do have a grudging respect for him. And even at 2-1 down, I don't think, you know, going into the first half, going in at half-time, I didn't really think that we were going to struggle. We had most of the game. But the game was typified by a kind of nervousness. It's, you know, I think taking Kivior off at half-time made sense. I was surprised. I'd love to hear what you thought about this. Were you expecting him to be replaced with Zinchenko? Because I thought the biggest problem we had was that, you know, he was getting roasted by Sane. And is Zinchenko the fullback you want to have on the pitch against a player like that? Of course, the game changed for Bayern when both Gnabry and Sane had to come off. Looks like Gnabry definitely is an injury. Sane maybe as well. So maybe they won't be available next Wednesday. But actually I thought Zinchenko played well, always trying to drive in through the middle. But even he was a bit sloppier than you'd expect. And you have to hand it to Thomas Tuchel for setting up against us. One thing I didn't really foresee was that Bayern would be happy to play without the ball. They defended really well. That double pivot of Goretzka and Lima. I know that Pavlovic would probably be playing and will almost certainly be playing next week. And that's an even more, and that's an even stronger defensive pivot. But like I said, surprised that Tuchel set up quite as defensively as he did. And if we hadn't gifted them those two goals, it would have been, I think it would have been a fairly comfortable win. But to come back to the point that some of our players just looked a little bit starstruck. And you can kind of understand why, because when you go through this team, this Bayern team, there's just stars everywhere. Manuel Neuer in goal, starting with that. Him coming back, that's just what I didn't want to see. Although he didn't really have a very good game. We're going to get to the penalty that he gave away at the end and wasn't given. But Joshua Kimmich linked with Arsenal. Again today, strong links. There were reports from Germany that he's actually agreed to join Arsenal. I really hope that's the case. Not to come and play at right back. I really think that, he's fallen out with Thomas Tuchel, who said he's not good enough to play in the centre of the park. He definitely is. On the day, I don't think that we tried to test Kimmich down that right enough. Martinelli was ineffective. We really wanted to get that ball moving down the right-hand side, and over again, that there weren't enough options to spread the ball quickly to Martinelli and test them at the back. They did sit back, so there wasn't space behind that I'd anticipated for Martinelli. But, looking across De Ligt, a good performance from him. Alphonso Davies, I think, did really well. Even though their left-hand side was definitely, you could see that was what we were targeting as their weaker side. I've already said Lino and Goretzka in the middle were outstanding. And then you look ahead to Sane and Musiala and Serge Gnabry and Harry Kane. There are great players in this Bayern side. And it made me think, Thomas Tuchel, this side is utterly wasted on him. Quite apart from the fact that he's already been sacked and he's still there. You imagine what Pep Guardiola would do with this collection of players. We would be delighted to come off the pitch 2-2 to a team as strong and experienced and as world-class as the players they had on the pitch. So maybe some of our younger players were a little bit starstruck and that played into maybe some of our players were a little bit starstruck and maybe we won't be going to the Allianz. There is a kind of feeling of pressure at home. Our defensive record is not as good at home as it is on the road. And I think that as fans, we're all a little bit nervy in a way that more experienced fans aren't. I think a Bayern stadium full of Bayern fans would have been a little less nervy and a little bit more expectant. I'm not blaming the fans. I'm not blaming the players. I'm saying this is all part of a learning curve. We haven't been in this stage of elite European competition for 7 years. I think that showed a little bit today. But I also want to say, Arteta did what we've asked Arteta to do so many times before and make the early changes. Bringing on Trossard and Jesus, you have to tip your hat to that. It was a great move. The goal that was scored when Jesus, magic feet and beautifully weighted pass into the path of Trossard. What a finish. And how clinical is Trossard? And on a pitch full of superstars, the fact that he stands out, that him and Jesus are standing out the way they do, what a signing he's been for us. That beautiful finish against Brighton on the weekend, and now this. And from that point, I really thought we'd push on, and it wasn't quite the press that I wanted to see from us. Then, of course, at the very end, Saka running through, takes it round Neuer, gets taken out by Neuer, and I think 9 times out of 10 that penalty is given, and I think the referee fluffed it. Of course, my opinion of it at the time was it was a clear penalty and the ref didn't want to give it, and you see these given more often than not, so why not? And then, of course, we find out, well, I didn't see this happen during the game, but we find out from Thomas Tuchel immediately afterwards when he's being interviewed, and he says that penalty, it should have been given. And of course, even the interviewer is not sure what he's talking about. And it turns out that the incident he's talking about is that the referee has blown the whistle. David Raya passes the ball to Gabriel, who then picks it up in the area, puts it down, passes it to Raya, and Raya carries on. Now, the referee's turned his back. He's definitely blown the whistle. He's turned his back when Gabriel, I don't know if he didn't hear the referee's whistle, but he's clearly picked the ball up in the area. And now, apparently, and according to Tuchel, the referee told the Bayern players that he wasn't going to give a penalty in a game of this importance for such a schoolboy error. And that's a problem. That really is a problem. You can't do that as a referee. You can't say that he didn't mean to do it. It's an infringement, but I'm going to look the other way. So in the context of that was a clear penalty. Bayern would have had that penalty when they were 2-1 up. I think that might well have ended the game as a contest, really. We would have been really struggling to come back into it 3-1 down. And so the fact that he doesn't give the penalty at the other end, in the context of that, makes a little bit more sense. Overall, I didn't think that the game was spoiled by refereeing decisions. I don't think he improved the game either. How do I feel about the game coming up? Look, I am disappointed about this game. We do, of course, have an incredibly important home game against Aston Villa, and it's important that we get some of these errors out of our system and go back to winning ways. Bayern Munich have a pretty meaningless dead rubber against FC Köln. Whatever happens, Bayer Leverkusen need only 2 more points to win the Bundesliga out of 6 games, so that's going to happen. And of course, Alphonso Davies picked up a yellow card, means he's suspended for the next game, but they'll be able to rest players. And I think we're facing a Bayern side who have nothing else to play for, a team full of superstars at the Allianz, and I'd much rather not have to go there and win. There is, of course, the potential that we will go there and hold out like we did at City and stop them scoring, and then goes to 120 minutes with a penalty shootout. Do we really want that when we've got to go away to Wolves just 3 days after that? And then, of course, I don't want to go out of the Champions League, so I'll take that. The overall takeaway from me is we weren't at our best and we didn't get beaten. We can go to the Allianz and win. After all, Dortmund did it. First time in 11 years that they've won at the Allianz in the league. I think the players just don't really get Tuchel or like him. And I think that was further demonstrated by the fact he dropped Thomas Muller for this match, which I was really surprised about. Yes, I can understand why he wanted Sane and Gnabry in there, but a player of the stature of Thomas Muller, who's been playing quite well recently, that surprised me. Anything is possible. It is a Champions League. It is a cup tie. I'm cautiously optimistic when I was fully optimistic before. I'd love to know what you think. Did you feel like we were robbed of it? Do you feel like there was mistakes? Should we have even started Kivior? It's easy to be clever after the event and say we needed a more experienced head on the pitch. Did you feel like Arteta got the key decisions right in playing Jorginho? Of course, Thomas Partey came on at the end. Maybe we could have started with him, had a little bit more drive going forward. Overall, I think Arteta got the big decisions right, and there's not a lot you can do when you give away sloppy goals. He talked about it in the press conference. I like how calm he is about it. At the end, the commentator said, Arteta's marching onto the pitch to talk to the referee. He didn't. He was really grown up about it. He said, look, these things happen. It looked like a penalty. Actually, he pulled the Arsene Wenger. He said, I didn't see it. He would have been the only person who hadn't seen it. And I think given that we didn't concede a penalty for picking up the ball in the penalty area, I mean, that would have been the most ridiculous penalty of all time. You know, that really would have been one of those things that would have stayed with Gabriel for his whole career. It doesn't matter how brilliant he's been, if he'd given away a penalty to make it 3-1 for that. So I'm really glad he didn't. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he didn't hear the whistle. But balancing out the penalty, there are going to be people who'd say that, Saka stuck a leg out and that's why Neuer brought him down. I'll stand by my point that 9 times out of 10, that's a penalty. And hopefully the next game against Bayern doesn't have these controversial moments in it and is just a thoroughly entertaining match. A bit like the Real Madrid-Man City match looked. I didn't get to see it, obviously. I'm going to go and watch the highlights now. But the goals in that game were outstanding. And I hope we have a game like that at the Allianz where it's 3-2 to Arsenal. We score in a dying minutes. And but I am concerned that what could happen if that game goes 120 minutes if we have to play Wolves away pretty much straight after it. Let me know in the comments let me know in the comments what you thought about the game. And just before I go, listen, to all of you who've subscribed recently and some of the lovely comments you've left, it means so much to me that you support this channel. Please continue to do so. You're absolutely wonderful. Together we can build a community of Arsenal fans that aren't just histrionic and shouting and screaming Arteta out. Together we can build this channel into a platform for intelligent, sensible Arsenal fans who enjoy and love our club. And who knows, this might still be the year we win the Champions League and we can all celebrate that together. So thank you for your continued support. Obviously, click like. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. You'll be joining a fantastic bunch of people. And until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.